Quinn, how are you today?
All right, I suppose.
I forgot that your rating goes from bad, panic, like apocalypse, all the way up to, yeah, it's all right. And so that this is actually like, relative to you, a really good rating.
Yeah, I haven't had like a truly good day since like middle school.
A feeling I know very well.
Yeah, so it's just, I mean, it's an effective and well, like partitioned scale. It just is universally low.
That's fair. You are Quinn. I am Zero. I already said this. This is a show that we've decided to call Z.Q.
Oh no, you're repeating yourself now.
And this week, we are going to do something a little bit different. We don't really have like a unifying topic or theme. We're just gonna roll with it.
Yeah, because our show is, from its inception, a ripoff of the Nerdist podcast. So this is our hostful experiment.
Yes, this is our hostful experiment. You know, I've been toying with this idea for a podcast for a while, and every episode of the podcast is styled after a different episode, like a different podcast's gimmick.
Oh no.
Right? So you would have one, and like, you know, occasionally you would have guests, or you would have, you know, both of the guests from that podcast on, and not just rip off that show, but actually talk about that show and review it and talk to the creators and stuff. And so, you know, you have one episode that's basically an episode of Cool Games Incorporated, one that's, I mean, any Two Dudes Talking podcast is a ripoff of the Nerdist.
Just have Cecil Baldwin on and gradually descend into horror.
Have Cecil. You know, we were talking about Welcome to Night Vale the other day, and you were saying that you'd fallen out of love because it had become very familiar and very, like, it no longer had that outsidery horror aspect to it. Mm-hmm. I started listening to a podcast recently called the Beef and Dairy Network podcast.
Okay.
That is much like Welcome to Night Vale, almost done up as like a fake news report. Mm-hmm. But it's this fake news report for this network of beef and dairy producers. So like their first episode is they're interviewing the European Space Agency's head of like megafauna.
Okay.
Or extraterrestrial fauna. They're like, he's talking about potentially finding microbes on Mars, and the host is like, but have you ever seen a hoof print? How would cows react to zero gravity? And stuff like that. It's really good. Their most recent episode, I think, or their second most recent episode is they have the Beef and Dairy Network's poet laureate on, and he's reading poems about cows and talking about how he wants to change the word for cow from cow because it has ow in it, and ow is a pain word. Mm-hmm. And he wants to make it, the letter C is fine, but he wants to make it a pleasure word. It's really funny. It's, you know, a bunch of British comedians on there being very dry and droll, but it's, If Welcome to Night Vale were a comedy podcast, it would be the Beef and Dairy Network podcast. And it has the added benefit that familiarity doesn't make it stale, because it's not, you know, relying on obfuscation or fear of the unknown in the way that Night Vale is.
Yeah. As far as podcasts that do rely on that, because they are my favorite genre of podcasts, because I really like horror, but I'm really like scared by images. Mm-hmm. So I get my horror from audio media. And I actually found like two pretty good ones. Well, one of them's not really horror, but Limetown, which has like one season. It's about this like research town in like the Tennessee Valley Authority kind of vein, actually in the Tennessee Valley, but not part of the TVA, that like just everyone vanishes in it.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and it's like a conspiracy thing, and it's got some good horror elements and conspiracy elements. And then the other one that I've really been into, because Limetown has like one season and they're not making a second one because they're working on like a TV show adaptation of the first season.
Uh-huh.
Then we'll get the second season, so there's going to be a bit of a wait there. Is Wolf 359. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I don't, which is surprising because we talk about podcasts quite a bit.
Yeah, well, I've only gotten into this one in the past like 4 days.
Oh, okay.
But I'm already on episode like 25.
All right.
Well, the episodes are only about 20 to 30 minutes, so they're you can get through it pretty quick. But it's if Night Vale was like, it's a very similar tone to Night Vale, but without with sci-fi instead of supernatural, and it's on this like isolated space station with a very small crew, and it's got like a crazy Russian doctor, and then like a lazy comms officer, and a snarky AI.
3 of my favorite things.
Yeah, there's another character, but her actual character development doesn't happen until like post spoilers. So
okay. There's a I think a really interesting divide in what kind of podcasts we get into, because you get into a lot of very narrative podcasts, and I predominantly listen to basically talk show podcasts. Wow, the English language is terribly hard.
for you, maybe.
Quinn with the shade. I mean, at least we made it like, what, 8-ish minutes into the show before just brutally attacking me and my person.
It's a new record, but
It's a new record. Yeah, the podcasts I tend to listen to are talk show podcasts like My Brother and Me, In Terabang with one of the brothers from Mabim Bam, and very similar podcasts. Like I started listening to International Waters recently, which is like a comedy quiz show where they take 2 American comedians and 2 British or vaguely European sometimes comedians, and they pit them against each other in basically a pop culture quiz battle thing.
Okay.
And, you know, the Americans get a bunch of questions about British stuff. The Brits get a bunch of questions about American stuff. It's really funny. They make a lot of fun of politics, and it's really good. It's really well done. Like, the quiz questions are actually, like, incredibly thoroughly researched. Like, one of them was, when did Bruce Springsteen first start drinking? No one knew that one because it's such a deep pull, but it's a really well-researched and very interesting show. We kind of have a weekly roundup this week.
Yeah, it's a little late, but it will arrive.
Yeah. Do we want to go to a commercial break and then come back?
We can, because this is taken up like about the same amount of time as the weekly roundup normally does.
We are just shaking it up this week.
Completely scrambled format. It's an adventure.
Absolutely much as we can. Do we want to make like our first song every week just "Wannabe" by the Spice Girls?
I have no strong opinion one way or the other. So
I'm glad you say that, because when I said, "Do we want to?"
you meant you're doing it because you have control of the music.
I'm going to. You're on the other side of the studio from the on-air computer. So you are subject to my whims. All right, we are going to go to a break. Then we will be back. We'll talk about some news. Stay tuned. Quinn, we are back. We're going to talk about... So this is sort of our weekly roundup, I guess, or date this podcast.
Yeah.
Still haven't figured that one out.
And probably never will, because as evidenced by the lack of an actual theme here, we are both evidently avatars of like the sin of sloth. So
you're already... that was meant to be a segue into our story, wasn't it?
No, that was a jab at both of us. Because I disagree with that point that you were making on our... Because I have the same reason reason I dislike your suggestion as the one I talked about, but we're going to get to that later in the second segment.
Why don't we just talk about it right now?
Oh, God, okay.
We're going to talk about those good space boys.
So, for those of you that don't speak Zero, what is being referred to is the 7 Earth-sized planets that were discovered by NASA recently in the TRAPPIST system, I believe.
I don't know. I didn't even do that much research. I just got really, really excited when I heard that there were... so you know this because you live with me. Anyone who's listened to the news show knows this. I get really hype for space news.
You do.
Love space so much.
But evidently you don't read the articles about space news, just the headlines.
See, here's the thing. When I read the headline that NASA had discovered seven Earth-sized planets in the habitable zone of
3 in the habitable zone. 7 total.
I was lied to. Anyway, I just got so hype.
That you forgot how to read?
I just got so excited because I love space. Anyway.
Well, to update you, since you didn't read an article and I did read one, there are 7 of them. 3 of them are in the habitable zone and all 7 are Earth-sized, which, like, on the surface is, like, very promising for life. Unfortunately, it looks like they're tidally locked, which is worse for life.
We can fix that. Just send a giant rocket booster.
I mean, we could live there theoretically in the future because, like, approaching a tidally locked planet with technology, they're very livable. There's a lot of question as to whether life could evolve there even with water.
That's fair.
So there is some hope. But to your point, and the one I was going to make that we discussed moments ago.
Just moments ago.
And I didn't see this tweet personally, but someone mentioned it to me, and I trust them. So I'm going to repeat it on air without fact-checking because I'm a terrible journalist.
Are we really even journalists?
No,
Quinn?
we're not.
No, we're not. We really aren't.
Apparently, Neil deGrasse Tyson, like, noted, like, science educator and Twitter celebrity.
Twitter personality.
Yeah. Since there's 7 of them, we should. He says we should name them after the 7 dwarves.
So I found the tweet. The 7 newly discovered Earth-sized planets orbit a red dwarf star, so perhaps they should each be named after the 7 dwarves.
While I like the dwarf star dwarf association,
although he spelled it dwarfs.
Yeah, that's the actual plural for that.
It isn't dwarves?
It's dwarves for, like, people.
Oh, okay, but for space. I don't like that.
Yeah, well, I know one of them is, like, the Tolkien one, and one of them is, like, the actual linguistics one, and I don't remember which one is which. Anyway, I have some concerns with naming them after the 7 dwarves, which I do like that association. You know, that's cute. If there is life on them, there are 2 potential scenarios there, both of which are slightly problematic.
Yeah.
Scenario 1, it's like microbial. And then, like, the first extraterrestrial microbial life that we discover, we have to name, like, Dopius grumpius.
I don't see your issue.
It's, speaking as a biologist, there are problems with that.
Also, would we even be constrained to Earth-based taxonomy?
Yes, it would be a separate. It would be like a branch on a separate tree, but the same tree system applies.
I feel like we would be starting entirely new kingdoms. Like it would be.
It would, but like
we would even have to introduce like a taxonomy above kingdom.
Well, but the kingdom phylum all the way down would just be 7 dwarves.
I mean, maybe, but it could also end up being like, you know, the binomial nomenclature name would be like Sneezus Jameson or what, you know, whoever discovers these things.
Okay, on to the scenario that concerns me more.
Yes.
If there is intelligent life there, which is probably not spacefaring because, you know, we would have been getting signals and stuff by now probably, because it's only 40 light years away.
Yeah, we would have seen them.
So presumably they're not like advanced, but if they are intelligent enough to have like language and stuff, we're going to have to explain to like the alien ambassador why we named his planet Dopey.
Or even worse, like if this planet doesn't have like the sneeze reflex and we've named their planet Sneezy. That's going to be a difficult explanation.
Yeah, like I feel like naming them after the 7 dwarves just like sets us off on kind of the wrong foot diplomatically with the theoretical alien life on these planets.
Yeah, well, and then another option, 7 Deadly Sins.
Your suggestion
would be similarly bad
because then it's like they're like, why did you assume we're all wrathful? Maybe they're not.
Yeah, it could be a planet that's totally totally pacifistic, resolved all conflict. And it's just like, no, that one's wrath. Alternatively, we could name them after the 7 contrary virtues, which is something that I'm just learning about right now. So there's a virtue to oppose each sin: humility against pride, kindness against envy, abstinence against gluttony, chastity against lust, patience against anger, liberality against greed, and diligence against sloth. So if we named a planet like Diligence, that wouldn't be so bad.
Yeah, unless they turn out to be like evil galactic conquerors, in which case there's just a layer of irony to our death as a species. But
just like we were conquered by the Diligence. It does sound like a Halo villain.
Halo specifically, yeah, because they've got the whole
like conclave and the
whole like religious enemy names thing going.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to think of.
The Covenant is the
Covenant.
But like it's like the prophets and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. Alternatively, we could name them after. We could just give them. They could be like Monday through Sunday, and we could have like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the weekend ones, be the habitable ones.
This makes sense. Okay, I'm on board with this plan.
Yeah. Also, the concept of like making contact with an intelligent spacefaring or an intelligent extraterrestrial race is that we as a planet have to decide what we're going to call ourselves. And like Guardians of the Galaxy uses Terrans, which, Terra, Earth, okay, whatever. I kind of hate it.
All right, here we go.
I'm far more partial to Earthicans.
Because you've seen Futurama.
Because I've seen Futurama, it comes up in other media, likely as a reference to Futurama, but I do just like how it sounds. Just Earthicans.
I mean, I don't understand why we wouldn't stick with humans. We don't have to call the planet Human Land if we stick with humans. It can still be Earth.
But see, I'm predicting a future where eventually we have humans on other planets, and so we want to designate the humans on Earth as distinct from, say, the humans on Mars.
Okay, but like the species name would stay humans, though.
Yeah, no,
okay.
It totally would. But the people from Earth would have to decide what we call ourselves.
Yeah, because I guess Earthlings was like a sci-fi term that was a diminutive.
Yeah, and we don't want that. We want to put our best foot forward when we're meeting our new alien overlords.
Right. So we've got like, we're assuming we're like interplanetary by the time this happens. So you've got like Martian humans. I'm still partial to Terran, honestly.
I'm not.
And like Ionian, like the rest of them work pretty well. Just sticking like.
We do have the problem of if we inhabit Europa, the moon of whatever that planet is. Then
wow. Okay. You really aren't all that up on space news.
I can't remember which planet it is. I just remember that I think it's Jupiter. Which one is Zeus? Zeus is Jupiter.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's Jupiter.
Yes, it is.
If we end up inhabiting Europa, which is one of the most likely scenarios, at least within our own solar systems, we would run into the problem of calling them the Europeans, which would just not do at all.
Well, I think you would go with like Europans.
But then it just sounds like you're saying Europeans with an accent.
No, it sounds like you've attached the same suffix you attach to like... I feel like you're being intentionally difficult.
If you couldn't tell by my grin, yes, I am being intentionally difficult. I am a firm believer in Earthicans over Terrans, though.
Oh, man.
All right, that's those good space boys. What else do we have?
Well, we actually followed up on one of our weekly roundup topics for like the first time ever.
Second time, we talked about The Last Jedi.
Okay, well, that wasn't a follow-up in terms of we have, like, confirmed our opinions about it. That was new information has arisen, right?
Yes. I mean, I've also watched more of...
Different kind of follow-up.
It's not the first time. Make us sound better than we are, Quinn. Come on.
We're not better than we are.
So we've just taken this long... exaggerated pause. There's some sort of childlike laughter permeating the studio. I don't know if it's coming through on air, but we can both hear it, and we just shot each other a weird look. Anyway.
So we actually went and saw the Lego Batman movie after we talked about it here. on air.
We did. And it was real good.
I enjoyed it, yeah.
Unfortunately, Garfunkel and Oates had very few lines.
Yeah, most of the people I was excited about had very few lines.
It was very much an ensemble movie. And so everyone kind of got a little bit of play.
Most of the classic Bat villains that aren't named Joker got like between 2 and 5 sentences.
Yeah.
Which was disappointing for me.
I mean, Joker even was very relatively pretty small in it. I mean, he was the main villain driving the plot, but he was not as much screen time as I would have expected.
He was like an actual character, though, unlike, say, Clayface or Killer Croc.
That is true. So ultimately the plot is that Batman decides to banish the Joker to the Phantom Zone because the Joker has goaded him into doing so, in order to free all of the universe's or all of the multiverse's worst villains.
Yeah, and I was expecting when that happened, because up until this point, unlike the Lego Movie, which is a giant, like, massive crossover piece, this had been all Batman characters.
Mm-hmm.
And like there is some evidence that this is like in the same universe as the Lego Movie, because there is like a brief shot of Emmett, the main character, from that.
Yes. There is no like fourth wall breaking existential horror, though.
True, there is none of that. But like it had been almost entirely Batman characters, and you know, like DC characters more generally.
Right.
The Justice League shows up at one point. So in the Phantom Zone, I was expecting Joker to get like Zod or Superboy Prime or Darkseid, and no.
Nope, he gets Voldemort, he gets Sauron.
Not like Sauron specifically, just the big tower with the eye.
Yes, just the Eye of Sauron.
Yeah.
Voldemort, voiced by Eddie Izzard. Sauron, not voiced. King Kong, Godzilla, one of those. I don't think both. Maybe both.
It wasn't Godzilla, it was the Kraken from like one of the versions of 20,000 Leagues where it's not like a squid.
Right, okay, yeah.
The shark from Jaws.
Yeah.
The raptors from Jurassic Park.
Which, I mean, I don't know. I liked it.
It was fun and I enjoyed it. It's not exactly what I wanted out of the film.
Yeah, that's fair. And it wasn't like, you know, an excellent Batman movie. It was a good movie that had Batman in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was really good though. I enjoyed it at least.
Yeah, it was good and fun, and it did what I was hoping it would do in terms of like giving us a fun, silly Batman again.
It definitely did, because they, and even almost explicitly did, in that they really lampooned like the broody Batman, like quite a bit.
There are Lego flashbacks to like the Dark Knight series.
Yeah,
briefly.
And there's a point where like just footage from the Dark Knight series, the Nolan Batman films, just comes up on screen.
Yeah.
I think there's a scene where Adam West's Batman comes up on screen too.
Yes, and Alfred dresses as the Adam West Batman at one point.
He does. They make a lot of like references and callbacks. It's very good. It's very well done.
Like I really loved the number and kind of deep cut of like the callbacks and pulling from Batman lore. I wish they had utilized that in the plot more than just like a reference for jokes.
That's true.
Because it was good jokes. Like they were funny, they landed, and they had like a point to them. They weren't just gags, but they also didn't like impact the plot really.
Mm-hmm. But ultimately, we highly recommend it.
Yeah, it was a good movie, and it's like, you know, it's kid friendly like the Lego Movie, so you can like introduce kids to Batman.
There is, I don't know why I said that like I was going to be like, oh, but you know, remember. But I mean, just like any it's good. There's humor kind of for all ages. Like your kid's not going to get the sex jokes. Which there are very few jokes
like
that are aimed at the adults.
There were like two.
They were well done.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on.
Wait, I had one more thing to say.
Oh, okay.
Just if you have seen it and enjoyed it as we have, and you want like more silly Batman, which you should, there's a really underrated and really good animated series called Batman the Brave and the Bold that is Batman crossing over with really weird elements of the DC universe and being ridiculous. I'd watch that if you enjoyed the humor of the Lego Batman.
Is that the one with Neil Patrick Harris as Music Master?
Music Meister,
Man?
but
Meister.
yes.
So close.
Yeah, there is a musical episode with Neil Patrick Harris, and it's great.
And he has like 14 costume changes.
Something like that, yeah.
Now we're going to talk about MST 3K.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know nerd acronyms for the 90s, as Zero didn't until very recently.
I actually had to practice this one quite a bit because my impulse is to say MTSK3, which is just all sorts of not even close to correct.
No, it's not.
Mystery Theater Science 1003 doesn't make any sense. Mystery Science Theater 3000 does.
Right. So for those of you that aren't aware of like the history of this, it started out as like a local show in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. That the premise is this guy stranded on a space station and his two robot friends watch really terrible sci-fi movies from the 50s and laugh at them. And it's a way to like easily watch a bunch of old public domain movies that are like hard to get a hold of. Mm-hmm. And also it's like kind of a weird sketch comedy show in the commercial breaks. And It was really good.
It was really good, very popular. And then
I've seen almost all of it of the original run because I'm a huge nerd.
And then it came to an end, and now it's coming back. Joel Hodgson, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah, Joel Hodgson.
Launched a Kickstarter in 2015 to revive the show for what was ultimately its 11th season, and for just 3 episodes. And pretty quickly surpassed like even the stretchiest goal.
Yeah, they got a ton of money because there were a bunch of people like me that threw money at it.
Yeah, and now so they've produced 14 episodes. The premiere was just this past week.
Yeah, I have not gotten a chance to see any of it yet.
So it hasn't come out. They had like an in-theater premieres for the first episode. It's coming to Netflix on April 14th. You know, all I'm going to be doing is watching this for like a week straight.
Yeah, I'm going to see it too when it comes out. But
and so then the cast will include Jonah Ray from the Nerdist podcast, among other things, serving as the host. Felicia Day will be there. Patton Oswalt is replacing the original Mad Scientist.
Felicia Day is replacing the Mad Scientist. I'm pretty sure Patton Oswalt is replacing TV's Frank, the Mad Scientist's assistant.
You know, now that I'm looking at the cast picture, they are both wearing lab coats and goggles. So that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Felicia Day is the new Dr. Forrester, the mad scientist making these people on the space station watch all these bad movies, who in the original show had an assistant called TV's Frank, who was like bumbling but fairly good-hearted, and I think that's Patton Oswalt's role.
I wouldn't be surprised. Crow T. Robot and Tom Servo are also returning with new voices, and Hodgson himself is going to make some appearances.
Oh.
I'm very excited. It's one of the show concepts we've tossed around a fair bit is sci-fi and talking about what we like about it, what we don't, some of our favorite movies. Mm-hmm. And I'm very excited about just all sci-fi, really.
Yeah, you are.
And I think this is going to be it's going to be an introduction to a whole new world of sci-fi for me.
I warn you. It's going to be really bad sci-fi.
Oh, no. Here's the thing. I don't really care about the quality of the sci-fi. Like, I love it that much. I am...
Okay.
Sci-fi, one of the most infamous examples, the Shadow Lobster. And they just held a lobster in front of... that's not the name of the movie. It's just...
Yeah, it was actually an episode of Mystery Science Theater. They watched It wasn't It Conquered the World, because that's the one where it was a big puppet worm.
But there was one movie that had just like a shadow.
Just a giant lobster.
Just a giant lobster.
And they were making like it was some like incomprehensible alien monstrosity, and it's like it's just a lobster on a miniature.
Yeah, it's just a lobster. It might have been the Teenagers from Outer Space.
I think that might have been, yeah.
And
which is the one with the hilarious defleshing gun, which
the defleshing gun
snap cuts to just a skeleton,
which is great. See, I don't even care, like, that tropey sci-fi nonsense. I love it.
Then you should, they used to have a whole bunch of Mystery Science Theater on Netflix, and we should check and see if they still do.
We should.
Because you haven't actually seen much of it, have you?
I haven't. I don't think I've seen any of it.
It's good.
Yeah.
A lot of references that you won't get because it's from the 90s.
I mean, everything's full of references that I don't get.
That's true.
All right. We are going to take a quick music break, and then we'll be back for some more stuff.
Probably, yeah.
Quinn, we are back. You gonna read a PSA?
Yeah.
I totally cut you off. We normally come straight back from the show, you read the PSA.
Yeah, and I was picking it up and in the process, and you just started talking.
I did. I'm just so eager.
Okay.
And now we're back.
Now that I've gotten to read my piece.
Now that you've gotten to read your piece and I haven't so rudely interrupted you, what do you want to talk about, Quinn? What else is floating around in that glorious noggin of yours?
It's okay. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
It will. I've just described your head as a glorious noggin.
Yeah, no, I know.
Over the radio, for anyone who's listening. All right. What do you want to talk about?
Why is all of this pressure on me?
I don't know. I feel like, and maybe it's just because like I edit the shows, but I feel like I talk so much more than you do.
I mean, you do because like you talk a lot more than me, I think. Like I think that's just a fact of life, not a problem with the show necessarily.
I know, but I'm trying to equalize it a little bit by putting an immense amount of impromptu pressure on you.
Gee, thanks. You've done it. You've ruined the show.
I've done it. I've ruined everything about the show. We've jumped the shark. Goodbye forever. We're never doing this show again.
That's a lie. We like hearing our own voices too much.
See, if you hadn't have said that, I was going to go to a music break.
I'm sorry. I cut you. Well, now we're even because we both cut each other off.
I've cut off your PSA. You've cut off my joke. It's good. But see, now I also have the problem of whether or not I keep that PSA in the final edit of the show.
I think no. Just let it be a complete non sequitur.
So just cut from, maybe I'll just like record a fake PSA and put it in there. But then I'd have to cut out this portion of the show.
I feel like you're just digging your hole deeper and deeper.
I'm digging my hole deeper and deeper. I have something that I want to talk about.
Oh boy.
The Magic School Bus reboot.
Right. I actually did want to talk about that and I'd forgotten. Thank you.
You forgot from literally the commercial or the music break to when you started talking. Although I did cut you off, so I guess it's all my fault.
You interrupting my PSA completely derailed my train of thought, but now it's been repaired and is back on the tracks.
And it's chugging along.
Yeah, sure.
The Magic School Bus reboot is a thing that's happening. Kate McKinnon is voicing Miss Frizzle. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too.
All the science.
And it'll be really interesting to see if they are like covering mostly new topics or going back and covering the old ones and seeing what like difference there is in the presentation. Because on some of them, the science has advanced a little bit, but a lot of them are basic enough that we've pretty much had it down since the 1700s.
Yeah, like the one where they bake bread. That one's pretty much, they get baked into a cake.
As the theme song will have you know, they get baked into a pie, but...
No, I'm talking about a different episode. Because they're dealing with yeast.
Yeah.
Talking about how yeast works.
I actually know, but I wanted to bring up that the theme song for that show was ridiculous.
It was. Everything about that show was ridiculous and great, and I love it.
Yeah, like when I was a kid, it was like Magic School Bus and Bill Nye and like Animal Planet generally were pretty much all I watched on TV.
Well, and Bill Nye is coming back now too. We have a Miss Frizzle reboot, Bill Nye reboot-ish. It's a different show.
Animal Planet's still mostly about hunting Bigfoot now, so we just need an Animal Planet reboot.
Just a Zoom Boomafoo reboot.
Yeah, well, don't the Crap Brothers like have a show now? But it's aimed at like little kids, I think.
I don't know. I haven't watched Animal Planet since like 3 summers ago.
Animal Planet. I think it's on like Hulu or something.
That would explain why I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, my sister is like 6, so she's not like a little kid anymore. But when she was, there was a show that it was like animated, and the like Crap Brothers from Zaboomafoo would like go around and save an animal or something, and give like very basic like 3-year-old level facts about it.
That's cool.
Yeah, like it's good to, you know, educate kids at that age about animals, because there needs to be more like wildlife and conservation education. And that's one thing I noticed about it. It had some, it wasn't just like, this is what the animal does. It's like, this is the threats to the animal and how they can be mitigated.
Yeah, and I definitely think, you know, in the current political climate, there's a lot of science hate going around. A lot of hate on science. 2 of the news stories, actually, that I reported on this week during the news show were about science. The American Association for the Advancement of the Sciences had their annual convention in Boston. Not this past week, but the week before this one. And they're at the convention. Their president endorsed the Scientist March on Washington.
Good.
There was a protest at the convention itself supporting basically the Scientist March on Washington. More of a rally than anything, I suppose. And then you have initiatives that are taking all of the public data that's been released by NASA and preserving that in case that information is no longer available in the near future. Because a lot of NASA doesn't just do space. Yeah. NASA and NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association.
Not sure about what the final A stands for exactly, because it's not really my area. But yes, the first 3 were right.
Yeah, so they both do a lot of work with the atmosphere, the
and climate science,
weather, things like that. Just generally, like I think NASA is supporting one of the big neutrino research facilities in Antarctica right now. The Amanda Lab. Don't
remember the name of it, but
yeah,
that sounds close.
Yeah, I'm really glad that we are having all of this science, I guess science literacy media popping up.
Yeah, it's good, and I think it's very necessary.
Yeah.
And like I grew up with a lot of that science literacy, you know, like Bill Nye, and actually a little bit of the one that wasn't Bill Nye but was pretty much Bill Nye that my dad like had taped from the 80s.
Professor Egghead?
No, it's I think like Beekman's World or something.
Beekman's World. We'll figure it out. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, like
because we do those now.
Yeah, that one I haven't seen since I was a little kid, so I might be getting the name wrong. I've seen Bill Nye since then.
Yeah. Well, that is all the time we have for the show this week.
Okay.
Thank you for listening, as always. Thank you, Quinn, for suffering through me.
You're welcome, as always.
Next week, we will be back. We'll probably have a little more structure to the show.
One hopes.
We'll figure it out. Also, so speaking of figuring things out,
oh boy,
I've realized that we've ended every episode with us saying something to the effect, well, me saying something to the effect of, we'll figure it out, specifically with our outro line. So why don't we just make our outro line, we'll figure it out?
Feels like a bit of a cop-out, but it's all right for now. We'll figure it out later.
There's another one that I have, and I've been using it to sign off on the show notes, right? So if you don't know, we have all of our episodes posted to SoundCloud, all of our show notes posted to Tumblr. Quinn's looking at me weird because I'm gesturing with my hand in the studio.
It's actually coming dangerously close to my head for a minute there.
Oh, you're like 2 feet away. So it's the line I've been using to sign off the show notes, and it's, as always, thank you for listening, and don't be afraid to tell everybody you know about us.
Yeah, I actually did have a bit of a sign-off message. It's not like a line, but just a plea for help.
Oh dear. Okay.
Yeah, like those of you who have like access to our social media stuff, please start sending in like show topic ideas, because we need them, because we're bad at this.
Yeah, I mean we have some, but a lot of them require a lot of research, and we're lazy.
Yeah, as you can tell, like less than 10 minutes of prep went into this show. So
less than 10 minutes of prep did go into this show. Please send in your suggestions. Let us know what you think about this show, regardless of how you listen. We're on Tumblr. We're on SoundCloud. We're on the radio right now. We were just on it for an hour. That is our show this week. As always, thank you for listening, and don't be afraid to tell everyone you know about us.